Hey guys, how you going? I was just watching Ron on Facebook and he was talking about mental health, and it made me think of this thing I'd come across a long time ago and how society is today. Now, I couldn't comment quick enough. The video ended and my comment disappeared after I typed it all out. It was a really long one too. So I just thought I'd come on and do a video because I'm quicker at talking than I am at typing on the phone. So anyway, this is Rational Wiki, and they are a small non-profit with no staff, hundreds of volunteers who document pseudoscience and crackery around the world every day. We will never allow ads because we must remain independent. We cannot rely on big donors with corresponding big agendas. And we're not the largest website around, but we believe we play an important role in defending truth and objectivity. And yeah, so they're asking for donations, and yeah, I'm having a couple of hard weeks, so I can't do it at the moment, guys. Anyway, this is the mouse utopia experiment. They've called it behavioural sync here. Is a hypothesis proposed by ethologist John B. Calhoun. After a series of experiments about overcrowding in rodents on the rat experiment, it is popular among groups within the manosphere, due to some of its results reinforcing their narratives over societal behaviours. Despite that, or maybe because of that, the experiments have been divisive among the scientific community, with some praising the results and others criticising and disputing the extrapolation onto humans. Curiously, the book Mrs. Frisby and the Rats of NIMH, that later became the movie The Secret of NIMH, was inspired by these experiments mostly carried out by the National Institute of Mental Health. The first experiments were made between 1947 and 1951 using 32 to 56 Norwegian rats in a 10 by 14 foot case in a barn. As the rats were provided with food, water, nesting materials, and protection from predators, it was called Utopia. The case was divided into 4 interconnected rooms, able to hold a dozen rats each. With time, the rats started to show bizarre conducts. Some of the behavioural observed included: some dominant male rats made harems, having control over several female rats to mate. Some females made groups and created their own territories, living together and violently rejecting any male approaching with no apparent interest in breeding. Just gonna plug my charger in. Sorry, guys. Of those that did breed, strange behaviours started to show, like violently attacking the infants. This is not uncommon. For some reason, rodents sometimes eat their offspring, or stop caring for the offspring long before it was normal. Those who survived were often unprepared themselves to care for their own offspring once they had them. High infant mortality rate. Some males still tried to mate even if it caused them to suffer violence from the stronger males. Sporadic and unexplained violence. Some males were frequent recipients of violence that they had to endure because there was no escape. Homosexual behaviour in some males. Some rats just kept isolated from the rest, not interacting with them nor trying to mate, dedicating most of their time to grooming. These were called the beautiful ones, precisely because they spent a lot of time cleaning themselves. And cannibalism. Now they're saying because of overpopulation, guys, what do you think big cities are? Just a thought. I'm not saying that I know or anything like. I'm just this. When you talk about mental health, this always springs to my mind. And I think we're certainly not living how we should be. We are living in the mouse utopia experiment. Anyway, I'll keep reading. The experiment was stopped when conditions of the rodents became too extreme, even for the ethical standards of the time. The second experiment was made in the 1970s with a 101-inch square cage using mice, reaching a population about 2,200 mice. He liked to call his cages universes. Its first study result were published in 1962 in Scientific American titled Population Density and Social Pathology. Yeah, population density. So in other words, cities trying to cram people into small areas. And what do you think Agenda 21 is? They're building units all over the place to try and get people into little boxes so they can pretty much have the mouse utopia experiment with us. Okay, Calhoun feared that some of these behaviours may happen in human society among highly crowded areas, like most big cities, there you go, leading to civilization and societal collapse. As mentioned before, some people happily extrapolate Calhoun's findings to modern society. Among them is Stefan Molyneux. But the experiments were also popular topics of MGTOWs and incels, and MGTOWs are men going their own way. Some of the alleged parallels are isolated females that reject male radical feminists. The beautiful ones are metrosexual versions of MGTOW, volcels, and everyone who seems uninterested in female companionship and are the counterpart of the radical feminists. The isolating ones are also compared to the hikikomori phenomenon and also the herbivore men, a collective term for Japanese men who prefer personal grooming and introspective pursuits instead of seeking female companionship. Sporadic acts of violence caused by sexually frustrated males are like our modern mass shootings. The mistreatment and neglect of the offspring runs parallel to modern bad parenting and high divorce rates. Overt homosexual behaviour in modern society and applying the unscientific glossary that they use in humans to rats like alpha male and beta male, which is anti-scientific in itself, or homologous to some of the rodents' behaviour with their current narrative white knights, nice guys, etc. Among some of the problems that these groups show while interpreting Calhoun's findings are cherry picking. The rodents show lots of behaviours that humans do not show, or even in their narratives, yet they pick ones that have some parallel as evidence that the same thing is happening. Correlation does not imply causation. Calhoun's experiments had no control group. Several factors may have caused the effects observed, like inbreeding and confinement, which human societies don't have. Some don't. And anthropomorphism. Humans and rodents, oh my god. Humans and rodents are very different, and some of the rodents' behaviour has been observed in some other situations without crowding. There's a humanisation of the rats to some degree, applying them human characteristics and reasoning behind their actions. Disputing the findings. First, it is important to mention that Calhoun was a legitimate scientist and his research, albeit controversial, was scientific in nature. Nevertheless, some of the criticism presented on his work includes lack of a control group, lack of genetic diversity. The rodent populations may have been too small to have a healthy genetic pool, leading to inbreeding. Some of the behaviours, in fact, may be explained by inbreeding, for example, high infant mortality rates and psychotic behaviour. Space. The areas were small, even for rodents. With all that considered, it might not be such a utopia after all. Now, I just want to say something here. Even though these people may be disagreeing, or whoever it is disagreeing, criticism or whatever of the experiment, what I believe it did show is I actually agreed with what he said. Yes, they don't have control groups, but think about cities. How do you explain that? Same behaviour. And if there's heaps of videos, guys, on YouTube, There's one by the Outer Light, I think it's Ed from the Outer Light, and he does one on the mouse utopia experiment. But yeah, there is some. Look, it may not be like mice and rats may not be like humans, but the behaviour that they exhibited and the behaviour we see today, you can look at it and it is very similar. And then you look at big cities, and now I don't know what it's like where you are, but we have suburbs that they're building houses and the houses are like a metre or so from each other. A metre or two. So you can hear everything that's going on in that next house. If their windows are open, your windows are open, you know. Yeah, I do believe that someone looked at this and thought they were going to try it with humans, and I don't know. maybe not. It's very interesting, guys. Other possible explanations. The rats instinctively knew that in such a closed environment, keeping their normal reproduction rate would eventually lead to problems, causing abnormal behaviours like refraining from mating or killing the offspring in abnormal numbers. Lack of recreation for the rats. Scientists in the 1950s were not as aware as today of animal intelligence. The general thought was animals just care for food and breeding, and if that was provided, they won't need more. Today we know that most mammals and birds require entertainment and that high levels of stress due to confinement and or lack of recreational activities may cause neurosis and violent behaviour in social animals. Incest. As mentioned above, the genetic diversity wasn't the best and could lead to some pathologies. Overcrowding did it. Yes, of course, that's a perfectly valid explanation. Similar behaviours have been observed in chickens in industrial farms, for example, including violent outbursts and cannibalism. Closed, crowded environments with no natural light or fresh air tend to make animals crazy, and who can blame them? In fact, similar experiments were conducted in prisons, the only human environment that could be really similar, and indeed there were similarities among prison social structures and how the rats and mice under Calhoun's experiments behave. Now, if you think about it, we might not have walls around us and we might be able to travel and stuff like that, but we are still in a system, I believe, that is similar to this. And again, look at the cities. Look at the shootings. Look at the behaviour, guys. And I think it's also because, yeah, people have no purpose. Ron had it right when he said that. He said people don't, you're working for someone else to get rich. You're working for someone else to profit from, and you get your wage enough to get by. Some people get more, some people get less. But people used to build things, and like before the women were taken out of the home to go to work, they'd be the homemakers. And at that time, the men would go out to work. And if you think before that, men would be working at home or from home, building, creating, inventing, doing whatever. So I think what's happened today, that these mice were given everything they could need, okay, other than the recreational side of it. We've been given the recreational side of it, but society is still going along the same way. And I don't think it's overpopulation. I think it's just because people are in cities that it should be spread out more. And there is a mental health problem. And I believe that's because people have lost they've lost their drive, their reason. Anyway, guys, that's the mouse utopia experiment. If you get a chance, go and look on YouTube and find a video on it, because it is very interesting to watch and see And look at today. You got people on Instagram printing themselves, not really interested in, and then you've got people who just lose the plot and get violent for no reason at all. Or they might have a reason, but it's not a good enough reason to go killing people. Nothing's a good reason for that. Okay, guys, well, now I'm just rambling on, so I'll talk to you soon, guys. Okay.